In this video, we are going to be solving multi-step equations. So let's look at the first example here. The first step to solve this equation is you want to combine the like terms using the commutative property of addition. The like terms here are 6x and negative 8x. And so using the commutative property, I'm just going to rearrange them since they're on the same side. I can do that. And so I'm going to put the negative 8x with the 6x, and then I just brought down the plus 3 and the 13. And then from here I'm going to simplify 6x minus the 8x, which is negative 2x, and then I brought down the 3 and the 13. And then from here, this is a two-step equation that should look familiar to you. So the first step I'm going to do is isolate the variable by putting a box around it. That's a technique I like to use, including its coefficient, which is negative 2. So make sure you put the box around negative 2 also. And then since 3 is being added to negative 2x, I want to subtract 3 from both sides in order to move it to the other side of the equal sign. And remember, what you do to one side, you have to do to both sides. So I'm going to subtract 3. Now I'm going to bring back down my negative 2x, and then 3 minus 3 is 0, and then 13 minus 3, that is 10. And then use the identity property of addition, which states that anytime you add 0 to something, it doesn't change it. So negative 2x plus 0 is negative 2x, and that's going to equal 10. And then since x is being multiplied by negative 2, in order to solve this equation for x, I need to divide negative 2 on both sides. And then from here, I'm going to simplify. Negative 2 divided by negative 2, that's a positive 1. And then x equals, and then 10 divided by negative 2 is negative 5. And then I'm going to use the identity property of multiplication to simplify, and that states that anytime you multiply by 1, it doesn't change it. So 1 times x is just going to be x. So x is equal to negative 5. Alright, next example. Similar to the last one, except there's variables on both sides. So the first step we're going to do is combine like terms using the commutative property of addition. So I'm going to, the 5x and the negative 6x are like terms, so I'm going to move those to be together. And I can do that because they're on the same side, so I haven't really done any algebra here. And then I brought down the 3 and the 9x and the negative 7. And then I'm going to simplify 5x minus 6x, which is negative x, and then I brought down the 3, the 9x, and the 7, negative 7. And then from here, you want to get all the variables together and all the constants together, and it really doesn't matter what you start with or where you start, just pick one. I usually start with the variable, so in this case I'm going to start with a negative x, and since x is being subtracted from 3, I'm going to add x to both sides. Now pay attention to what I did here. I am adding x to the 9x because those are like terms, and I can't add x to anything else. So then I'm drawing my line, and I bring everything down and simplify. Negative x plus x, that's going to give me 0, and then I'm going to bring my 3 down, and then 9x plus, that's a understood 1x, so 9x plus 1x is 10x. Now I brought down my negative 7. And then because of the identity property of addition, 0 plus 3 is just going to be 3, so 3 is equal to 10x minus 7. And this becomes an equation that you should know how to solve, a two-step equation. So the first step is isolate the variable by putting a box around it, including its coefficient, which would be 10. And then since 7 is being subtracted from 10x, I want to add 7 on both sides. And then that's what I did here. And I'm going to draw my line, and I'm going to simplify. 3 plus 7, that's going to give me 10. And then I brought my 10x down, and then negative 7 plus 7, that's 0. And 0 plus 10x is just going to be 10x. So I'm going to simplify that. And since x is being multiplied by 10, I'm going to divide both sides by 10, and then I'm going to simplify. 10 divided by 10, that's going to be 1. And then 10 divided by 10, that's 1. And then there's still an x there. And anytime you multiply something by 1, it's going to stay the same. So that 1x is just going to be x. So 1 is equal to x. Alright, let's look at example 3. This time I included an example with the distributive property here. And so the first step is actually to do the distributive property to distribute the negative 3 to the expression in the parentheses. You want to make sure that you multiply by everything in the expression, each of the terms, by negative 3. So that's what I did here, negative 3 times x plus negative 3 times 6, and then I brought down the 5x and the 20. And then from here I'm just going to simplify everything. Negative 3 times x is negative 3x, and then negative 3 times 6 is negative 18. and then I brought down the 5x and the 20. And then you're just going to combine the like terms using the commutative property of addition. So I'm going to be rearranging stuff, and the like terms are negative 3x and 5x, so I just moved them to be next to each other, didn't do any algebra here. And then I brought down the negative 18 and the 20. And then I'm going to simplify by adding the negative 3x and the 5x, and that's going to give me 2x. Then I brought down the negative 18 and the 20. And from here, it's just a two-step equation that you should be familiar with solving. So I'm going to isolate the variable by putting a box around it, including its coefficient, which the coefficient in this case would be 2. So I'm going to put the box around the 2 and the x. And then since 18 is being subtracted from 2x, I'm going to add 18 on both sides. And then I'm going to bring 2x down, and then I'm going to simplify. Negative 18 plus 18, that's 0, and then 20 plus 18, that's 38. And then here, anytime you add 0 to something, it's not going to change it, so 2x plus 0 is just 2x, and that's going to equal 38. And then since x is being multiplied by 2, we are going to divide 2 on both sides in order to solve for x. And then 2 divided by 2 is 1x, and 38 divided by 2 is 19. Now, because of the identity property of multiplication, anytime you multiply something by 1, it doesn't change it, so 1 times x is just going to be x, so x is going to equal 19. Alright, last example, we're going to solve this equation for x, so it's combining all of this stuff that you guys learned so far in the video. So the first step is you want to use the distributive property to distribute. Now, it is a negative on the outside of the parentheses, but that's understood to be negative 1. So we're distributing negative 1 to the expression in the parentheses, which means that you have to multiply negative 1 by each of the terms in the parentheses. So negative 1 times x plus negative 1 times 2, and then I brought down the 5, the 2x, and the 6. And from there you're going to simplify. Negative 1 times x, which is negative x, and then negative 1 times 2, which is negative 2, plus 5 equals 2x plus 6. And then from there I'm going to simplify like terms. And in this case, the negative 2 and the 5 are my like terms. So and they're already next to each other, so I don't have to move them around. And so negative 2 plus 5 is 3. So then I brought down the negative x, and then I simplified the negative 2 and the plus 5, and then I brought down the 2x, and then the plus 6. And from here, you want to get all your variables and constants together, and it doesn't matter where you start. I always like to start with a variable, so I'm going to start with the negative x again, and since x is being subtracted from 3, I'm going to add it to both sides. And notice where I add it, I have to add it with the 2x because those are like terms. And then I'm going to simplify everything down. Negative x plus x, that's 0, and then I'm going to bring down my 3, and then 2x plus, that's understood to be 1x, so that gives me 3x. Plus, and I just brought down the 6. And then 0 plus 3, that's just going to be 3. And so my equation is 3 equals 3x plus 6. And now you have a two-step equation that you should know how to solve. And the first step to solve that, you need to isolate the variable by putting a box around it, including its coefficient, which would be 3. So I'm putting a box around the 3 and the x. And then since 6 is being added to the 3x, I'm going to subtract 6 on both sides of the equal sign. Don't forget to do it on both sides, and then I'm going to simplify it down. 3 minus 6 is negative 3, and I'm going to bring the 3x down, and then 6 minus 6, that's 0. So here, to simplify the right-hand side, the identity property of addition says that anytime you add 0 to something, it doesn't change it. So 3x plus 0 is just 3x. So negative 3 equals 3x. And then since x is being multiplied by 3, I need to divide 3 on both sides in order to solve for x. So that's what I'm doing here. And so negative 3 divided by 3, that is negative 1. And then 3 divided by 3, that's 1x. And then 1 times x is just going to give me x. And so x is going to equal negative 1. And I know that was a lot, and I know this is a longer video, but I wanted to make sure that I included enough examples for you to practice.